Hello and welcome to the Supply Chain Risk Management course. The course code for this particular course is LSM 558. It is important that you identify the course with the course code because in all your dealings with the university, the course code is very, very important. For the avoidance of doubt, the title of this course is Supply Chain Risk Management. I am Abdul Samed Muntaka. Some of you may have known me before at the undergraduate level. Others are new to. This is your first time of seeing me. I am responsible for this course and I am the examiner for the course. This course is facilitated with the help of 7 other colleagues who are stationed in Tamale, in Takoradi, in Koforidua, in Accra, in Kumasi, in Ho, and any other center that will be able to get the numbers to run. For now, these are the centers that run. So you may find that when you go to class, this course will be facilitated by somebody other than me. For this reason, it has become necessary to provide an additional material by way of recording, so that if there is any topic that you did not fully understand in class, you have the opportunity of watching this video and appraising yourself with some of the issues in it. In this lesson, we are going to deal with the risk in today's business environment and how to manage same. The business environment today sees a lot of risk. The question is, what are these risks? How do they come about? And how do we manage them? So, in this model, we'll look at risk and risk management. We will look at growth of risk management, and then decision making under conditions of certainty and uncertainty. Because in each of these is risk. So to begin with, we will say that everyone is familiar with risk in one form or another. You may not know it is risk, and therefore we say that the risk may be formal or it may be informal. And also, we may have a formal definition of what constitutes risk or a non-formal definition. But to understand risk from the basic standpoint is to think of anything that is unpleasant that might happen to make the situation that an organization or an individual finds himself or themselves very, very uncomfortable. So when somebody invests, the person can either gain or lose. Therefore, we say there is risk, because that investment can lose, can be a loss, and the person will have lost the money or whatever they invested. Let's say you have timed your movement and you want to go by train and the train delays. There's risk because that delay may cause several other things. You may get to work late, you may be reprimanded, you may be dismissed, you may miss an appointment you can never get again. When a motor accident occurs, there is risk because the vehicle can be destroyed, people can lose their lives, somebody's product can get spoiled, and so on and so on. People becoming ill, and then quite recently, the coronavirus pandemic. These are all forms of risk, and they generate different levels of risk. Therefore, we say that risk is a threat that something might happen to disrupt normal activities or stop things from happening as planned. Day in, day out, we plan what we intend to do. Everybody wakes up, every business opens, and there's a plan rolled out for what they intend to do for the whole day, for the whole week, for the whole month. In fact, in some cases, for the whole year. Some businesses even have 5-year plans, 10-year plans. So anything that can happen to disrupt the activities that will lead to the achievement of these planned activities can be deemed as a risk. So you produce a new product. Your aim is that it will do well and you will recoup your money and make some profit. What if the product doesn't do well? Or a project that you decided to invest in was unsuccessful. It couldn't complete. So you didn't even get the product of the project, and therefore you are not able to actualize whatever you intended to do. Or the cost of raw materials rising, delay in customer deliveries, a supplier you are relying so much on goes bankrupt. All these are forms of risk because they disrupt activities. Look at this interesting one. A product may suffer a shift in demand. You know, demand is the basis of the survival of business. Anything you produce, if nobody needs it, there's no way you can continue producing it because you are using money to produce it. And the aim is that when you invest this money and you produce the product, this product should get acceptability, be bought, so that that money can be recouped to be reinvested. So if you produce and nobody wants the product, then what it means is that you are not able to recoup the money you have invested, and so you cannot continue producing. So this shift can be a rise. So suddenly you are seeing a lot of people wanting your product. Think of hand sanitizers. Think of the PPEs in this era of pandemic. Some of the companies are overwhelmed. They have run out of raw materials, and the source of the raw materials have been closed. So you are going to make do with what you have. So shifts in demand are serious because it can be a rise and it can be a fall. When it is a fall, there's a problem. When it is a rise beyond certain level, there's also a risk. What is the risk? After when it is low, we all know the risk is that the company will eventually fold. What if there's a rise? If there's a rise, it means customer demand cannot be met. Dissatisfaction will grow and people will look for substitutes. So when things normalize, these people who have found substitutes who may be performing better than the original product will never come back. And that is a risk. When warehouses are destroyed by fire, so in a nutshell, we say that risk may come in so many different forms. So when we take the supply chain, then you see that the supply chain has actors, it has stages. So it can appear at any point in the supply chain. The particular risk factor can be associated with suppliers. It can be associated with the supplier's supplier. It can be associated with the manufacturing company itself. It can be associated with the distributors, the warehouse, the retailers, the wholesalers, all the way to the consumer. If you take the case of Italy, you see that the supply chain of several products have had to come to a halt because stores have been asked to close. So if you are the one who supplies potato chips to the store is closed. If you don't find another way of getting your products to the final consumer, you have to stop production. So this one is coming from the retailer's point of view. The supplier is ready to produce. The store that is the retailer or at the retail point is closed. Where will the customers get it? Fortunately for us today, there's WhatsApp, there's this social media that people can use. Therefore, that also creates another outlet, but it also comes with its own risk. risk of hackers, risk of people stealing people's money. All that are forms of risk for the supply chain in particular. They can also interrupt the supply of materials and by extension the demand for the product. They can cause sudden peak in demand or a sharp fall in demand. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with what is going on across the world. Airports are closing, borders, even for cars to travel through, are closing. Ports are also closing. So even if you have your product, where will it pass? Look at somebody who has ordered a perishable product, and then the ship arrives in the waters of a particular country whose port is closed. You can imagine how long can these things sit in this ship until the time allotted for the close down. In Ghana, we have closed down for 2 weeks. If you have brought a product that must be cleared or that is highly perishable, it may not last the 2 weeks. Now, your challenge is, do you take it back? What do you do? Do you throw it away into the sea? How do you account for the money? Who pays you for the products that you are going to throw away? So you see that in this area, the disruptions or the risks can cause several businesses to what? Close altogether. If you have heard, the EPL, English Premier League, if they do not conclude the 2019-2020 season, they have to churn out or they have to pay back £756 million in TV rights only. You can imagine the number of jobs that will be lost as a result. So, I don't know how they will do it, but this is what we call, these are the things we refer to as risks. And how to deal with them is the risk management. So, there is no group of professionals who have to learn risk management more than people in supply chain. Because the lifeblood of every business is the availability of materials for production. And these materials come in through the supply chain. When the materials are transformed into finished products, they also go out to the final consumer through the supply chain. So when supply chain professionals or when the supply chain risk cannot be managed, it means businesses are going to ground to a halt. So the nature of the risk can be described as minor or major. And risk in itself can range in scope from minor delays here and there, which are normal, and we use buffers and inventory management to deal with them, to natural disasters that require a more serious, or that are generally more serious and usually large scale. And their effects can be short term, lasting only a few minutes, to permanent damage. Trust it or not, the world will never be the same again after this pandemic. It may take the world some 40, 50 years to really normalize and for everybody to forget about what is happening. The effect of a risk can be localized in one part of the supply chain, maybe dealing with affecting only suppliers, or only manufacturers, or only retailers, or the downstream. Or it can threaten the whole supply chain. So, these are just a few risks that have happened in the past. And Toyota was forced to stop its operations in all of its 12 domestic plants because there was an earthquake in the country where they get their pistons from. You know, the pistons on the engine. So once that company was grounded, that was it. Toyota could not continue production. Meanwhile, the earthquake didn't happen in Japan. Or Toyota in itself was not the company that was affected. But because a major supplier was affected, they could not continue. I don't know how many of you remember the story of Philips and the semiconductor factory. Nokia immediately had to come to a halt because it responded slowly when the Philips semiconductor factory was flooded. Eventually, Nokia lost almost $400 million in mobile phone handsets only. And that threatened the survival of Nokia. And I don't know how many of you are aware, but Nokia has changed ownership, and that's why it is still in business. Ice cream suppliers suffered. Companies lost close to 5 million ice cream orders a day because there was a closure in one of its suppliers for 10 days. Such predicaments have informed the world in doing several things as backup. As you are aware, several countries have been forced to lock down their airports due to the coronavirus pandemic. And you also know several supply chains have come to a halt. Meanwhile, at the same time, the supply chain of other products like hand sanitizers, nose masks, and other health-related supply chains are now seeing demand that they cannot meet, leading to increases in prices. So in brief, this should tell you what risks supply chains face and what the potential for the damage is to the supply chain. So the biggest risk to modern business continuity may not lie within the company. I don't know how many companies you have heard that have had their workers infected with the coronavirus. But what is happening outside is forcing the companies to take decisions. So we have risk to businesses coming from supply shortages, either because of a quality problem or a supplier bankruptcy. Countries are protecting their indigenous industries, and we call that trade protectionism. So where trade protectionism increases, every country tries to protect its own industry, and therefore in countries where these products are not produced, cost goes up because now it will be more expensive to get the products into your country. So import and export costs go up, and you know that is not good for any economy, not to talk of the supply chain. The currencies are also fluctuating and causing supply chain costs to either go up or change course, and that is also affecting product demand. Those products that are dollar denominated, as the cedi to dollar rate deteriorates, people change the demand. I don't want to demand this product that I always have to look for dollars to buy. Why don't I look for a product that I can use my cedi to buy? So for those organizations who want to charge in dollars, in one breath they may be benefiting, and in another they may lose. Because as the cedi deteriorates against the dollar, their products become more expensive and people begin to look for alternatives. And you know that I have always maintained that Ghanaian customers are very slow in deciding. But when they decide, it is very difficult to get them back. So if you are a business and you take the Ghanaian consumer or customer for granted, it may take time for them to take action against your organization. But eventually, when they do, you will spend a lot of money advertising, doing promotions, and you will still not get them back. Now, natural disasters and global pandemics are also part of the risks that modern businesses face. Now, what are these risks? First of them is disruption caused by IT service failure. The world is relying more and more on technology. Businesses are now floating their products online. They are taking payments online. They are taking orders online. They are supplying and informing customers through online. So when the IT industry breaks down or there are disruptions in it, it creates a lot of misconception. Can you imagine a customer who has paid 10,000 cedis and is waiting for a product that is supposed to take a week to be delivered and is not getting updates? Or somebody who has even spent 100,000 or 1 million Ghana cedis. The person can even get heart attack. Meanwhile, information, just the arrival of information alone is enough to calm the tempers of this person. The person can track the order. And so every now and then, the person is calm. Now, you know that the modern supply chains are interconnected in a way. And they are very complex. For example, somebody is an iron rod retailer in Tamale or in any of the northern regions. Meanwhile, iron rods are manufactured in Tema. Now, in order that the person will get these iron rods, the person has to come to Tema or has to work through an agent. Now, the company may have a policy that says, you know what, if you are not able to order up to a certain level, you cannot deal directly with us. You have to deal with one of our major distributors or wholesalers. All of this increases the length of the supply chain, and by so doing, makes it more complex. But let's look at a farm milk product like Fan Mango. Fan Mango uses mango as a raw material, sugar, milk. And meanwhile, all these products have their own supply chains. The mango supply chain is there. The milk supply chain is there. The sugar supply chain is there. Meanwhile, all these supply chains must interconnect and meet in a timely fashion to enable Fan Milk produce the Fan Mango product. So, this increases vulnerability because any of this can suffer a disruption. A disruption in terms of logistics failure, a disruption in terms of human carelessness, a disruption coming from power outages, or anything. Even a communication gap can cause a disruption in any of these supply chains, and that will increase the vulnerability of the Fan Mango supply production and its supply chain, because as a product, Fan Mango itself has a supply chain. At the top, it has many arms. So at the top, we have maybe sugar supply chain, we have milk supply chain, we have mango supply chain. All of that come together to give us the Fan Mango. Now, when the Fan Mango is produced, it also goes to wholesalers, distributors, and then this goes to retailers before, in some cases, it gets to the customer. So that is, in terms of drawing, it looks very simple. But in real life, that is a very complex supply chain that requires a lot of proper management. Otherwise, a disruption in one arm can cause the entire supply chain to suffer. Environmental risks also need to be controlled. Sometimes, some of them even bring about sanctions. I always maintain that it is in this part of our world that we are quick to collapse businesses for minor infractions. Elsewhere, they will use sanctions to get the company to do the right thing. So if your license has expired and you refuse to renew it, the penalty you pay alone will cause you to want to renew that license. If you are producing in an unhygienic environment, the penalties you will pay alone is enough to let you make sure you. And they don't just come and slap the penalty. They give you warning, give you time to do it. So if some institutions are not doing the right things, I don't think collapsing them is the way forward, because that generates its own risks, and it is a multiplier related risk. Because a bank is giving somebody a loan, that person has opened a business, the bank closes. Now that loan, where do you repay it to? If you want to continue taking loans, where do you get it from? Once banks are reducing, it means loans are going to be what? Scarce. Even if the interest rate don't go up, loans will be scarce. Expansion of businesses will suffer. For me, from where I sit, that is a big risk, and it makes the supply chain of businesses very vulnerable, because they all rely on funds. Remember, supply chain is the flow of three things: funds, money. So when money suffers, we are in trouble. Products and information. So product and information are all driven by money. So if money suffers, then everybody is in trouble. So then we have social media. What people do on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube can be beneficial, or it can also create risk. These days, false news is all over the place. Can you imagine somebody just tweeting that a research has found that tomato gives cancer? You can imagine in 1 hour how many people will see this post. Better than somebody says tomato gives you good blood. The negative things sell very fast, and people in the name of panic will push it, and the company will spend a lot of money and time trying to do damage control. So all this brings risk. So do we need to manage the risk? Take a minute and think about it. All these risks I have enumerated, do we need to manage them? If we do, what is the need? And you will find that the idea of managing risk is not needed at all. Except that traditionally, risk management used to be thought of as a function of, or as an activity limited to financial institutions and insurance companies. Because insurance companies deal with risk, and then they take premium against the risk. Financial institutions generally also deal with funds from people that can bring them some risk, and therefore everybody, when they thought about risk, always think of financial institutions and insurance companies. But risks management has expanded beyond the traditional sense. It is now a specialized function required to be done by actuaries, or what in Ghana we say actuarialists. So who is an actuary? Somebody who is able to put pen to paper to calculate. So when we talk of risk, we are talking about it in broad sense. I expect an actuary to be able to put pen to paper and tell us the actuals. So now the leagues around the world have halted. What is the actual risk? What is the economic implication? An actuary should be able to sit down and then see that, okay, in Ghana, one game is able to bring us 2 cedis, and we play 16 games per week. That means 32 cedis per weekend, and we are going to halt for only God knows how long. Assuming we stop the season, 72 games are lost. Multiply that by 72. So this is actualization of the risk, so that we see it in its true form. If I tell you that there is a risk to the health workers because of the current pandemic, yes, you can appreciate it, but in monetary terms, what is it? Maybe we can think of their lives and say they will lose it. Some of them may not lose their lives. Some of them may become sick, which sickness they can never recover permanently from. So, in addition, risk management has become a broader function that involves most decisions, and is even becoming an intrinsic part of management. It is as if today as soon as you are referred to as a manager, by natural implication, you should be able to manage risk. Many organizations will not even bother to take you for any training on how to manage risk. All they will assume is that you are able to manage risk. That's it. So you are a risk manager. When a risk event occurs, everybody expects you to excel in managing it. Nobody has bothered to give you the training for how to manage the risk. How to even identify that it is a risk. That is why you see that every now and then in Ghana, it is as if we are doing reactive, we are applying the reactive modes or reactive model. We wait for whatever will happen to happen before we come rushing to solve it. But it is because many of the people that we put in responsible and management positions have not been given any risk management training. In fact, most organizations don't even have risk registers. Meanwhile, a risk register should be compulsory. Every organization by its existence must come out with its potential risks, both foreseen and unforeseen, and then how they will manage it in case it occurs. So that it is in a book called the risk register. In project management, we discussed what the risk register is. So when we come to analyzing risk, we will talk about it again. As an organization, you should have a risk register that will incorporate your supply chain and all the things that can happen. When you do that, then risk management has become an intrinsic part of the management of your organization. So the question to ask at this point is, why is risk awareness growing in today's business management circles? Why? Take a minute to think about it. Relate your mind to your organization. Is risk management awareness growing in your organization? If it is, why? If it is not, the organization has to rethink. Maybe you are not at a level where you will know, but you are able to identify that risk management awareness is growing if every now and then there's a small meeting to take you through what constitutes risk and what you can do. And usually every meeting, you are informed that this can happen, and when it happens, this is what we will do. Or you are given risk management procedures, rules and regulations governing different aspects of risk. Then you know awareness is growing. If you don't see any of that, then you know that your organization is not thinking of managing risk. They want to apply the reactive model, where you wait for the action, for the event to occur, and then you do remedials. You take remedies. Now, the more reason that risk management is growing is because doing business is becoming more risky. Because the risk faced by organizations and their potential consequences are growing. Do you know that one of the very serious risks in Ghana today to the supply chain and virtually the survival of businesses is change in political power? We have done politics so dirty that when there is a change in power, and the government must collapse businesses before it is satisfied. I have never seen this kind of behavior. I don't know whether it is because we are black, but you wouldn't want to imagine that the first things that a government would think about is to collapse businesses when these governments are supposed to be creating jobs. In fact, some of them even promise to create more jobs. The current government promised to create a lot of jobs. So you will expect that it is in their area that no business will be allowed to collapse. Whatever we will do to save the business, we save it. The argument of whether saving it will have saved more or not is neither here nor there. We need an actuaries to come and tell us that, not a politician. So, risk management has grown. But what are the major issues? So, first, the terrorist attacks of 9/11 in the US kick-started a whole different era of management or management of risk. To the extent that at airports, you now have to remove your belt, you have to remove your shoe, anything that is metallic on you, and then we have scanners here and there. So for the supply chain of scanners, it is good business because almost every airport now has scanners, whether it is for domestic flight or international flight. And then we have had Al-Qaeda, the ISIS, Al-Shabaab, the Boko Harams. All these organizations have come up as a result of one form of, or have unleashed one form of terrorist attack here and there. And that is changing and continuously changing the way we do things. Formerly, when you go for a visa, your fingerprint is not taken. Now you are not only going to do 2 thumbs, you are going to do all 10. When you come to the our local environment, we have the Delta Force, the Bulgar Bulldogs, Invisible Forces, Azoka Boys. All of these exist as social movements, but they are a major risk because whoever has control of these people has an advantage over somebody who doesn't have these people. So when they want to cause mayhem to you, by the time the military or the police will hear to come to your aid, they have inflicted the harm they want to inflict. And some of the harm they inflict is irreparable because they cause permanent damage. Can you imagine how you can console somebody whose hand was cut completely, chopped off as a result of violence from any of these groups? Riots. We are seeing demonstrations, strikes, wars like the Arab Spring, natural disasters, typhoons, tsunamis, floods. These are regular. And then now, the pandemic, COVID-19. All of these are major issues. And they are all calling for more attention to be paid to managing risks. I would have loved that all universities put in place what KNUST has done, a fully functioning distance learning online mode, so that we can activate it or shut it down as and when there need be. Because like today, many people will have just stayed at home and then just watch. If not for the fact that people will come again and view this recording, it would have been best if it was live. So every student is hooked onto their computer and we are having the class. People can ask questions, make contributions, and enrich the class. All the same, this development is calling us to pay a bigger attention to the management of risk than we are doing. Today, we are sanitizing markets. We are sanitizing the streets. We are thinking of a total lockdown where we will ask people or force people to stay home. All that is creating risk. If I'm staying home, what will I eat for 2 weeks? Because we all know some organizations are hand to mouth. They make money for what they have sold that day. Ask the banana sellers. Ask the bullfruit fryers. Ask the kose sellers. Ask all these self-employed people. And you will find that for many of them, it is hand to mouth. I go every day and then I get what I will eat. So if there's a total lockdown, for me that is excellent because it will help us contain the spread of the virus. However, what will people eat? How are we going to ensure that we are able to get everybody what they will eat for the 2 weeks that we are intending to lock down? It is not an easy decision. And therefore, the country, I think that going forward, every country must put together a comprehensive risk management plan with buffers here and there for containment of this. And the way it can be done is like a cycle. So we have warehouses where we store products. When a new season comes, we take out what is in the warehouse and we put the new one. It may come at a cost, but risk management itself comes at a cost. You can't manage risk if you are too concerned about the cost of it. What are the minor issues? Heavy traffic causing delay in delivery, customers moving to more reliable suppliers, and creating problems for the suppliers who are deemed as unreliable, internet service failing, switching to other providers, and then sudden rise in prices like the price of hand sanitizers, customers looking for alternative products, looking for alternative payments from suppliers and customers that will be favorable to everybody. So, we have looked at risk. We have looked at their nature. We have looked at where they can emanate from in general terms. We have also looked at the need to manage them. We have looked at the growth in risk management, otherwise referred to as why organizations should pay more attention to managing risks. Now we are going to get to management and decision making. You know that decision making is for managers, and they must make it every day, because every day there are issues, both complex and incomplex, that they have to deal with. The circumstances governing their actions and functions is also requiring them to make decisions. Usually, these decisions can be made when the outcomes are certain or uncertain. So, what is the structure of decisions? First, there's a decision maker, somebody to be making the decision. It can be the manager or anybody designated by management to take the decision. If you go to a typical home, it can be the father, the mother, or sometimes even the grown-up children. Everybody makes a decision at some point. So in every decision-making process, there is a decision maker. Somebody has to make the decision. That decision has an aim. So whatever decision is taken has an aim that is to be achieved. Then there are a number of alternative courses of action. You can do A, you can do B, you can do C. You have to sit down and assess all of them. Then you make a decision to choose one of the alternatives. And what is expected is that whatever decision you are going to choose or you end up choosing is supposed to be the best. That is why you hear some people say, oh, this person has been careless. This person is stupid. This person is this. It is because in the mind of the people who are analyzing the decision you have taken, you did not choose the best alternative. So, after the decision has been made, of course, there will be events that will occur. Some of which the one who has taken the decision, in this case the manager, has control, and others the manager has no control. Let's put the GFA chairman as the manager of the management of risks in the business of football in Ghana. So there's a global pandemic. He has the option of letting the games continuing, or the games stopping. So, who is the decision maker here? The GFA boss. What is the aim of this decision maker? In this case, we have to guess. I am not in his mind, but I will have thought that he is going to take a decision that is supposed to maintain the interest of football, but at the same time not jeopardizing the life of the people who must enjoy the football. For me, that should be the aim of his decision. So, on one breath, he is taking a decision that is in the best interest of football. But at the same time, that decision is supposed not to risk the lives of the people who must provide the football or enjoy the football. So now, what are the alternative courses of action available to him? Two things: to let the league continue or to let the league stop. Any decision he takes, there is a state of nature that he cannot do anything about. So if he decides to let the games continue, there is a state of nature. That decision could be favorable or what? Unfavorable. If he decides to let the games stop, that decision could also be what? Favorable or unfavorable. So after the state of nature, where things will be favorable or unfavorable after you have taken a decision, that one exists. And in many cases, there's very little you can do about it. In the case of GFA and the coronavirus, the decision was that the games should stop. So in the mind of the GFA boss, who in this case is the decision maker, he and his team, but of course he is the boss. So when I say GFA boss, I don't mean he's the only person making the decision. Please understand that. But now that they have taken the decision maker, the GFA boss, has announced to the whole world that the games have stopped. My presumption is that in his mind, it is the best alternative. But that decision he has taken has consequences for club owners. What do they do with the footballers? Do they let them go home or they have to keep them? If they go home, will they pay them or they won't pay them? If they keep them, will they pay them or they won't pay them? Sometimes if they keep them, they may have to even feed them. If they let them go home, they may just pay their salaries. And so, you see, it is certain actions that the GFA boss cannot control. That's why we are saying that after the decision has been made, events will occur over which the one who has taken the decision, the manager, has no control. Now, there may be radio rights, TV rights. These TV stations and radio stations may have paid their money. Who refunds the money? This one crowd there, you can say the GFA has control over it, because GFA can go into its coffers and pay them the money they have paid them. But what of those who will have sold food at these events? The workers they have employed because of these games. What of those printing tickets? The workers they have employed for the tickets they have. So you will see that anytime you take a decision, events will occur that you may not have control over. Does that mean you shouldn't take decisions? You have to. And see how best you can manage the consequences. You should just bear in mind that each combination of the alternative chosen will be followed by an event happening, leading to an outcome that has some measurable consequences. In fact, here the key word is measurable consequences. So some of the consequences of the combination of alternatives you take can be measured, but I can tell you others cannot. There are social and psychological effects of decisions that cannot be measured. Because in the decision to halt the league, the Ghana League, I can tell you there are some psychological and emotional consequences that can never be measured, especially for food vendors, for people associated with the football indirectly. they are in nightmares. Airlines are in nightmares because if you have your plane in a country that is not your home, you pay landing charges, ground rents. So let's say Ethiopian Airlines got to Heathrow and then Heathrow locked down and Ethiopia also locked down its airspace. If they are not able to negotiate for that Ethiopian Airlines to go to its home in Ethiopia, then I can tell you they have to start paying ground rent for how long that plane will be at Heathrow. Unless they go to negotiate with the UK government to give them a waiver. Otherwise, they will have to pay ground rent. Meanwhile, the plane is not flying. So which money are you going to be using to pay the ground rent? So, some decisions are there. The outcomes are known. And so we say the characteristics of certainty is that the manager knows with certainty which event will occur after their decision and what the consequences will be. At least in the case of GFA, one of the things they know for sure is that teams will have to think about whether they will keep their players or let them go. In any case, the teams must pay the players. For that is known for sure. It's a risk because the teams have no money coming in. Meanwhile, they must pay the players. In reality, decisions with certainty are very difficult. Why? It is one thing knowing the outcome and the consequence, and another being able to deal with it. What is making the case of our clubs even more serious is that they don't even know how long this pandemic will last. In other countries where teams have stopped playing, there are contingency measures. There were insurances bought here and there, and some governments are already announcing stimulus packages. I haven't heard any stimulus package for any of our clubs. I don't know what GFA will do for them to help them keep their players. But let's say, God forbid, this pandemic runs for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. Where will they get money to be paying these players? This risk is very difficult to deal with because you know the consequence, but how to deal with it? You can go for loan. The bank will eventually seize your assets. Because how are you going to pay? Patronage at our stadia is very low. If it is that after the pandemic we will see a rise in patronage, then you can say the clubs can cover whatever money they will have gone for. So we say that uncertainty means that there are several possible events that might occur after a decision, but only one of them will actually happen. So what you can do is you can list all the events, except that you don't know in advance which one of them will occur. So now you are going to work with probabilities. So you see that risk, decision making under uncertainty comes with what? Probabilities. So those events that you can apportion probabilities to are the ones often referred to as the risks. Those that you cannot assign probability to, they are usually not risks. They are issues that you have to deal with. So, while the decision criteria of decision making under uncertainty are personally influenced, personality in fact, decision making under risk are probabilistic. You will find that when you are making decisions under uncertainty, outcomes are not known for sure. Who you are and your demeanor towards risk influences that decision. Let's say you decide to venture into a business that others are in, that it is doing well. You see that in this case, you are going to look at the risk of the probability of your failing or succeeding. So that comes under risk. So you are using probabilities. But look at a brand new business where nobody has ventured into. You are not even sure whether or not this thing will succeed. So you are deciding under uncertainty. Your demeanor towards risk, whether you are risk averse, a risk lover, a risk taker, or somebody who is not lacks initiative, will influence this decision to a very large extent. That's why we say that for decision making under uncertainty, the criteria can be influenced by your personality. We have gregarious people. They are active. They are searching. They want to be challenged. The way they will decide will be different from people who are reserved, calculated. They want to know, they want to see everything in black and white before they decide. That's why we say it is personality influence. But when it is decision making under risk, it's based on probabilities. Will it do well? What is the chance that it will do well? That is what you will dwell on more than your personality. So let's look at this example, and that will help us to put this in perspective. So we have a manufacturer of FCGs, and he wants to be responsive to his customers, and is considering a number of distribution channels to adopt to distribute his goods to customers as listed below. Now, this manufacturer wants to find out how they can be more responsive. If you are responsive, it means you want to be able to meet your customers' demands in record time. So you are the manufacturer. You can do that through the web to a shop and then to the customer. So, for example, you are a manufacturer, you put your products online, but there's a particular shop where customers can go and pick it up. Or you have a shop that can take it to the customer. When we're doing transportation and distribution, we talked about last mile. We talked about distribution channels with customer pickups. So then we have direct shipping, that is like a chartered shipping. So depending on which one you do, you are going to be more responsive than other ones. So if, for example, I am operating through the web, through shops, and then to my customers, then customers who can go to the shop can get it on the web. Those who can go to the shop will get it from the shop. It means the product is almost always available. Then we have manufacturers who deal with retailers, and then the customers buy from their retailers. So they make it available to their retail outlets. So if the retail outlets are plenty, it means the product is available and near to the customer. If the retail outlets are fewer, it means some of the customers will have to cover long distances to get the product, and that will affect responsiveness. Then we have a direct manufacturer to customer. The customer places the order and the manufacturer deals with the order directly. Or the customer goes to the premises of the manufacturer to pick the products. Then we have a manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer, and consumer, where the manufacturer makes the products available to the wholesaler makes them available to the retailer, and the retailer makes it available to the consumer. Now, this manufacturer has thought through this and found that the rationale for this decision is to increase its responsiveness. But at the same time, it is aware that a wrong choice of a distribution channel may either have no effect on responsiveness or may end up deteriorating it, making it worse. Therefore, the manufacturer came up with the following channel alternatives. And then they looked at the state of nature. Remember, I told you that for the state of nature, it is there. Any decision you take, it will meet the state of nature. You take the decision, and then you get favorable conditions, which you cannot influence. You can also take a decision and get unfavorable conditions that you cannot influence. These favorable or unfavorable conditions are states of nature. So in this case, an organization wants to take a decision to increase responsiveness, and you will find that either it is able to um, actualize the intention and get its responsiveness to increase, or as a result of what it has done, its responsiveness can reduce or stay same. Let me chip in this example. I don't know if it is popular or not. How many times have you attempted to impress your wife? Those of you who are married. And then you buy something that you think, oh, for this one, oh, my sweetheart should see it and thank me and give me points. And then you get home and they are like, is that all you can buy? What is this? Then it is thrown at your face. So, though you had the intention of increasing happiness, you have ended up decreasing happiness. Some will just say, okay, thank you. You have neither increased happiness or decreased it. Same thing. So you see, you took the decision and it came to meet a state of nature. That state of nature is there. It has either increased happiness, maintained happiness, or made happiness worse. So let's look at this table. Now, if you look at this table, the manufacturer of the FCG, I just created the acronym. You can take the FCG to mean anything. Okay? You can call it food, consumables, and general products, or anything you want. It has the option of using channel A. Remember the channels. These are the channels. So channel A is manufacturer, web, shop, consumer. Channel B is manufacturer, retailer, consumer. Channel C is manufacturer, consumer. And channel D is manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer, and consumer. So let's go back. Then it has determined that the state of nature that it can face, and then the possible return. So look at this. We said it has payoffs. Payoffs. So the payoff here is 40. You can call it 40 cedis. Normal 95 cedis and increase 140 cedis. These are what it will get. The payoffs it will get if it is able to actualize this decision. And we have been able to determine the probability of its occurring. So if you look at the alpha figures up there, we are using it to represent the percentage or the probability of its occurring. So there's a 20% chance that if they went for alternative A, they will rather decrease responsiveness. If they went for channel A, there's a 30% chance that it will neither increase nor decrease responsiveness. And there is a 50% chance that it can increase responsiveness. So channel A has the advantage, the following advantage. But the probabilities affects all channels, just so that the analysis can be done. You will find that it is the outcomes that we have varied. After the probabilities, we have maintained them. So these are the payoffs. When we talk of a payoff, you can call it a profit, you can call it an outcome, you can call it a consequence. If you take the decision, what will happen? Now, we are supposed to determine the best decision using each of the decision criteria and give reasons for our decision. So, remember, those of you who have ever done decision models, you will find that decisions can be made using the maximalist approach, the maximum approach, the criterion of realism, otherwise referred to as the Horwich, the Minimax Regret, and the equally likelihood approach. Then, we are also to determine the expected monetary value without perfect information and with perfect information. Now, let's look at the first one. You will see that each of these decision models is a mindset. For example, somebody believes that if he marries a beautiful woman or she marries a handsome man, her problems are solved because it is something that is nice. I will see it all the time and be happy. There are others who believe that marrying a beautiful woman or a handsome man is crisis. Because when the beautiful woman will attract a lot of men, and when you see the men around her, you will be unhappy. The handsome man will also attract a lot of women, and when you see the women around this person, you will be unhappy. So think about it too. The same beauty, the same handsomeness is creating two outcomes. Two outcomes. One group of people thinking it is the best because anytime you see it, you are happy. And another group of people are thinking you should run away from it. So this maximum, they are all mindsets. So when you look at those who go with the maximax approach, they believe that they want to find the alternative that maximizes the maximum payoffs. So for each decision, I want to see what is the maximum payoff. Which of the decisions will maximize this maximum payoff? So what you do is that you go to each of the decision alternatives and look at the maximum payoffs. Then you select the payoff with the maximum number. That is maximum of the maximums. So look at channel A. Each payoff is what? The maximum is 140. It has 40, 95, 140. The maximum there is what? 140. Look at channel B. The maximum there is what? 100. Look at channel C. The maximum there is 110. Look at channel D. The maximum there is what? 90. Of all these maximums, the max is 140. So, based on this, we go with the decision to choose alternative A. That is, we have to distribute through the web to the shop and to the customer. So, under the approach, the underlying concept is that the maximum of the maximum returns will generate the most value for the organization. So, all the returns that are likely, we want the biggest. It is the biggest we want to pursue. These are people you can liken to be risk lovers. They are risk takers. They want the maximum of everything. If I can get 130, I shouldn't get 129. They want the maximum. These are optimists. So if you go to decision models, you find that this class of people are termed as the optimists. They optimize everything. Now let's come to the maximum. Think about it. For this alternative, they believe that the alternative that maximizes the minimum payoffs. You see, we want to work with the minimum. What is the minimum saying? What effect is it likely to have? Yes, that kind of that situation is the best. So if you look at them, first we say locate the minimum payoffs on each alternative. So go to alternative A, the minimum is 40. Alternative B, the minimum is 60. Alternative C, the minimum is 50. And alternative D, the minimum is 30. Out of that, so out of all the minimums, the maximum of it is 60. And therefore, our decision will be to what? Choose channel B. That is manufacturer, retailer, consumer. At this point, your mind should be telling you, but why are the different models giving us different outcomes? Don't forget that when you are going to take this decision in real life, you are going to take one of the decision-making criteria. You are not going to use all. You are going to look at your circumstance, look at your demeanor towards what you are going to do, and decide whether you are an optimist or a pessimist, and you want to go with the maximums or the maximum of the minimums. When you have decided, then you apply the model. In that case, when you decide that you want to go with maximax, don't go and do maximum again. No. When you do the maximize, you stop there. If maximum of the minimums is what you want to go with, you do maximum and you stop there. That's how it goes. You don't mix them. Now, let's go to the criterion of realism. These people believe that, no. Each of the alternatives has a certain role to play should have a certain role to play in the decision. Therefore, why don't we take the weighted average of them as a compromise between the optimistic thinkers and the pessimistic thinkers. So first, you select a coefficient of realism. Here you can call it, for me, I like to term it as the probability of that situation occurring. And if you look at our table, we have said that there's a 20% chance of the decision you will take decreasing responsiveness. There's a 30% chance of it leaving the responsiveness where it is, neither increasing it nor decreasing. And there's a 50% chance of it increasing it. So you should remember that this coefficient should be between 1 and 100%. So 0 and 1. And the value of 1 is like 100. So that's what I was just saying. So what you do is that you compute the averages for each of the alternatives. They are 3. You add all, and then you find the average. So we say that in order to do that, there's a formula. There's a formula. So here, think about it. We say that where the number of alpha values have been given, as in this case, take the alpha value of the maximum in the row, because it is alpha maximum in the row. So the alpha value associated with the maximum in the row is what you are going to use to calculate the weighted average. So let's go. Now look at the channel A. You remember that the maximum in the row was 140. And then the alpha there is what? 50.5. So we are going to have 0.5 of 140 plus 1 minus 0.5 of 40. That is the minimum in the row. The minimum in the row was 40 and the maximum in the row was 140. We did the same for each of them, and so we got channel A to be 90, channel B to be 80, channel C to be 80, and channel D to be 60. You can try your hands on it, because for each of them, we worked with the maximum in the row. The maximum in the row. So we worked them out. We had 90, 80, 80, 60. Now, the maximum of the criteria of realism is what? 90. And therefore, our decision will be to choose alternative A or channel A. That is if we have decided that the criterion of realism or the Horwich is what we intend to use to make our decision. So don't go and confuse it with maximax or maximum. No. If you are doing maximax, when you do it, you are finished. If you are doing maximum, when you do it, you are finished. If you are doing criterion of realism, when you do it, you are finished. Now let's go to equally likely. So, like I said, we choose channel A, and that is to go through the manufacturer, the web, the shop, and the customer. The underlying concept is that the maximum of the criterion of realism will generate the most value. So, when you have applied the criterion of realism, which is what? Alpha times maximum in row plus 1 minus alpha times the minimum in the row for each of them, each alternative. When you finish, you choose the maximum and you are done. Now, there's the equally likely. That says, no, you know what? All payoffs play about the same rule. Therefore, let's find the average. And we select the alternative with the highest average. So add 40 to 95 to 140. This is 275. 275 gives you 90. If you divide it by 3, you get 90.66 something. Then 91.66 something. And that gave us an average of 92. You can check these things out. So when you find the average of each of them, the highest of them is 92. So again, we go with what? Alternative A. So just check 40 plus 95 plus 140 all over 3. And that will give us 275 over 3. This is 9. This is 1.6666 something. Just check. And this will give us approximately 92. That's why you see the 92 there. If you take the next one, 60 plus 80 is 140. 140 plus 100 is 240. 240 divided by 3 is 80. So that is how we arrive at these figures. And we choose the maximum in the row, which is 92. So some of these, it is the criterion of realism that requires some rigorous mathematics, followed by the equally likely. Remember that they don't cross each other. If you are deciding with the equally likely or Laplace, that's it. You use it and you finish. If you are deciding with the criterion of realism, you use it and that's it. If you are deciding with any of them, you use it and that's it. Now we have the Minimax Regret. This Minimax Regret is based on the opportunity you lose when you don't use the maximum. So for each of the states of nature, that's the decreasing, the normal, and then the increasing. When you don't use the maximum, there is an opportunity lost there. And so they call it a regret. So we call it the Minimax Regret. When the regret of not using the maximum. And normally it is the difference between the optimal profit and the actual payoff for each decision. So when you want to decide using the Minimax Regret, what you need to do is to create an opportunity loss table. Then, when you finish, you find the maximum opportunity loss for each alternative and pick the alternative with the minimum number. So, how do we do that? You go to each column and subtract. So, you see that for the state of nature decrease, the best is 60. So, if we were to choose channel A and go with 40, it means the opportunity loss there is 20. 60 minus 40. If we were to go with channel B, then we lose nothing because that is the maximum, 60 minus 60. Channel C will have given us an opportunity loss of 10. And so that is what you see here in this second table. You have 20, 0, 10, 50. Then we come to normal. Normal, the highest is 95. So if you don't choose 95, it means you have lost. You have lost something. So the opportunity loss for channel A is 0 because that is 95 and 0. For B is 15, for C is 5, and for D is 35. And then we go to the last state of nature, which is increase. The best there is 140. 140. So look at the 140. So 140 minus 140 is 0. And then all the opportunities we will lose if we don't choose the 140. When you finish, you are going to pick the maximum in the rows. The maximum in the rows. So for channel A, the maximum is what? 20 because it's 20, 0, 0. For channel B is 40 because it's 0, 15, 40. Channel C is 30 and channel D is what? 50. You should have said it by now. So it is minimax, minimum of the maximums. So we have pulled aside all the maximums for each of the alternatives. The minimum of them is 20. And so with the Minimax Regret, our decision will be to go with what? Alternative A. The notion here is that the minimum of the maximum opportunity losses will yield the most return. I just gave you the example. It is a criteria and it is a way of thinking. Just as I just told you that for the same beautiful woman or handsome man, there are those who think going for a beautiful woman solves their problem. Just as some people also think that going for a beautiful woman creates their problem. Some women also believe that going for a handsome man creates their problem. And some believe that going for a handsome man solves their problem. So it is the state of the mind that is going to influence the decision. So if your state of the mind is for the optimism, that is maximax, you go with it. If it is pessimism, minimax, you go with it. If it is criterion of reality, you go with it. If it is equally likely or Laplace, you go with it. If it is Minimax Regret, you go with it. Now let's come to the end monetary value analysis. Here, there are several possibilities of nature, and we know the probabilities of each of them. That is how this one works. You cannot calculate the end monetary value of any decision if you don't know the probability for sure. So you just don't know the state of nature, that is favorable or unfavorable, good or bad, increasing or decreasing, and so on. You also know the probabilities. And these things can be determined by organizations, either through their R&D or they get a consultant to determine it for them. So when this is the case, then the popular method for choosing The alternative with the highest expected monetary value is the EMV. And the EMV for each alternative is the payoff of the state of nature times its probability. And then the payoff of the second times its probability, and so on. So when you take a particular channel, it's the payoff times its probability. Payoff times its probability. So remember, for decrease, the probability was 0.2. The alpha was 0.2. For normal, 0.3. And for increase was what? 0.5. And the payoffs was 40, 95, 140. Now, when you calculate all these, you are going to get 106.5 for channel A, 86 for channel B, 92 for channel C, and then 69 for channel D. You can just give it a try. Remember, if you look at our table, we had channel A. We had decrease was 40, alpha was 0.2, normal was 95, alpha was 0.3, and then increase was 140, alpha was 0.5. That is why, to be able to determine the end monetary value, the EMV, it was what? 0.2 times 40 plus 0.3 times 95 plus 0.5 times 140. And this gave us 106.5. Why didn't we run off? This is end monetary value. And don't forget that money can be calculated in, money has pesos, or it tolerates decimal places. So it's 106.5. Do the same for all the others. Try it on your own, even before you move away from this slide, so you know. So as far as end monetary value is concerned, we will choose alternative A because that has the largest EMV. Now, in real life, we are usually called upon to take decisions when we have information, or sometimes when we don't have information. So all we have done up to this point, whether you have information or not, it should work. But assuming you had perfect information, then it means you can improve upon your decision making. So we say that when we have to decide, when we have to calculate the monetary value with perfect information, then we have to take the end value with perfect information and we subtract it from the maximum EMV. Don't forget, we calculated the maximum EMV. The EMVs, when you go back to this slide, the maximum EMV was what? 106.5. It means what we are left with is this one, end monetary value with perfect information. So end monetary value with perfect information. The assumption here is that if you have perfect information, it means you have all the information you need. Therefore, the payoff should be the maximum, the best. Think about it. I am deciding. I have all the information I need. Then whatever payoff I will get has to be the maximum. It is the maximum. So in this, the concept is that in the long run, the return, if we have perfect information, will always be made. The return with the highest average will always emerge as the best when we have perfect information. Don't forget that when you have perfect information, it means you know everything you should know. So we say that to do it, it is always the best payoff times its probability, and you add them in that order. So let's come to this. Remember, for channel A, the best payoff was what? 1/4, and its probability was 0.5. You remember? Go to channel B. The best payoff was 100. Its probability was also 0.5. This one was pure coincidence. Go to channel C. Its best payoff was 110, and its probability was also 0.5. And then channel D, the best payoff was 90, and its probability was also 0.5. So half of 140 is 70. Just find out. 0.5 is half. Half of 100 is 50. Half of 110 is 55. Half of 90 is 45. That is how come we got these figures. So it means that if we were calculating n value with perfect information, then our best outcome should be 220 and not the 106. Therefore, our EVPI, that's the n value with perfect information, is going to be 220 minus 106. And that will give us 113.5. It is important for you to note that the n value with perfect information is not a selection method. The selection methods are Maximax, Minimax, criterion of reality, or Horwich, equally likely or Laplace, the Minimax Regret, and then the n monetary value. These are the selection methods. But the n value with perfect information allows you to find out what the outcome will be if you had perfect information. And those of you who are in businesses that require sensitive information, you realize that sometimes the information has to be bought. You have to buy that information. You need data to decide, but you don't have the data. There are companies that sell this data. They are going to sell it to you at a cost. Is it worth buying at the cost they are telling you to pay for it? You can use this analysis to tell whether what they are telling you to pay for the information is good or bad. You are going to think that the information they are asking you to buy will give you is the best information and to give you the optimum payoff. Therefore, if you finish calculating the EVPI, this 113 is telling us that the value of any information that we will purchase or have is 113.5. Therefore, under no circumstance should we pay more than 113.5 for any information. So, I said small notes on EVPI. Sometimes to take decisions, we need information. And so we often try to purchase the information. To know whether the information being bought is worth the price or not, it is necessary for you to calculate the EVPI. Normally, the best decision is to purchase the information at a price lower than or equal to the EVPI. Any information that you buy at a price higher than your EVPI means the information you have bought is too expensive. It is not going to bring you any benefit beyond. At this point, they always say that you can't learn any concept if you can't apply it to your life. I have always admonished our married couples. There is some information that is not worth it. Don't even entertain it to buy trouble for your own self. Thank you very much. If you have any concerns, please feel free to contact the e-learning center at elearning@kenuniversity.edu.gh or send them an email, elearningkenuniversity@gmail.com. You can also call them. You can call me also if you have any issues. You can call me on 020-5515-494. Thank you very much.